what an interesting fight on our main event at flyweight. And I'm not joking, at flyweight, we have the blonde fighter, Katlyn Chookagian, former title challenger, taking on Brazil's Jessica Andrade. And we're talking about the former women's strawweight champion, Jessica Andrade. And I know in her last two fights, both of them losses. But again, we're talking about Zhang Weili and then the Rose Namajunas fight. Very, very interesting in both of those. I mean, finished in the one and a split decision in the last one against Namajunas, the rematch. And for Katlyn Chookagian, she's 1-1 against Shevchenko. Just anybody named Shevchenko. Yeah. But the loss to Valentina in the title fight, and then the win in her last time out against Antonina. I mean, Katlyn Chookagian looked like she took not just steps, but jumps, leaps, and bounds in her last fight from fights before. I mean, Katlyn Chookagian, I know, Matt, you've been pretty... I wouldn't say, whatever the opposite of high on a fighter is, low. You've been low on Katlyn Chookagian because she has been a point fighter. She's been a volume striker. She's been the same time in, time out. She's going to win by split decision. She's going to lose by split decision. But in her last fight, she almost looked like late career Holly Holm, just working the takedowns.
Not even. She
getting
went out
all over her opponents.
She went out there and wrestled like Kamaru Usman. And it was really weird, too, because everyone expected, okay, you're this great volume striker who uses her movement a lot. And yes, I have been hard on Chookagian, because if you watch 90% Chookagian fights, there's just a lot of, ha! And that's about it. And, like, not a lot afterwards. But she did really go for the finish, it felt, in the Antonina Shevchenko fight. And it was the first time that I've ever watched Chookagian fight and thought, oh, she's actually trying to get out of there before the 15 minutes are over. Now, I know it sounds like I'm being really hard on her, and I sort of am. But she's been able to win doing that. So, like, who am I to judge it? Katlyn Chookagian, like I mentioned, great movement on the outside. Really good front kicks, too. Good at using her distance. Good with the jab. She does, stick, kind of move a lot. Andrade the opposite, and I really do think Andrade's last fight prepared her perfectly for this one. Now, the first time Andrade fought Rose Namajunas, she was getting completely destroyed and then slammed Namajunas on her head, knocked her out. And then, of course, she becomes champ, gets knocked out by Weili, and then has the rematch with Rose. And the first round, it was looking like it was going to be the same thing. Rose teeing her off, using her movement, her knees, using her great boxing. And then Andrade, just as the fight was going, she wouldn't go away. And that's the thing that you really do have to like about Andrade. No matter how much movement a fighter is using, she's just going to march them down no matter what. Now, you would like to see her maybe cut off the cage a little bit better than just dart forward. But those darts and those blitzes forward, when she is just throwing those hooks and overhands, we had mentioned it in one of our earlier videos with Poliana Botelho, but Andrade, another one who, in this division, I think she has massive pop on her shots. I think she's going to be able to knock out a lot of people at 125, because you got to think, she fought and beat Raquel Pennington at 135. She's fought at 115 and become champ of that division, and now she's meeting them in the middle at 125. I'm not going to say that Andrade's going to beat Valentina Shevchenko, but I personally do believe she's one of the harder matchups for Shevchenko moving forward in this division. Now, will she be able to beat Katlyn Chookagian? It's going to be a tough fight, because it really does come down to, can Andrade get her hands around Chookagian? Because Chookagian's not going to fight Andrade like she did Antonina Shevchenko. Andrade is a far superior grappler to Antonina, and physically strong as anyone in the women's divisions. I mean, Andrade, kind of her run towards the strawweight title was one of the more violent runs, really, that we've seen in MMA history. Because you're going to think, she was just throwing around like Claudia Gadelha, Tisha Torres, fighters who at the time were in like the top 5 and all looked like at one point they could potentially fight for the title. Andrade beat the brakes off all of them. And then, of course, that terrible knockout over Karolina Kowalkiewicz, where she sent her to like the shadow realm. That was really hard to watch. But Andrade, you know what you're going to get. She's like a female John Lineker. She's going to go out there, throw those big hooks, big looping shots, and really want to work her way on the inside. The question for me, though, is what can Katlyn Chookagian do to really get Andrade to stop, to respect her striking? Because Chookagian, if she does go out there with that volume mindset, I do see Andrade kind of hunting her down as the fight goes on and really landing bombs. Because I mean, if you can outstrike Rose Namajunas and, like, really, really hurt her in a fight, then you can outstrike Katlyn Chookagian. Like, Rose Namajunas is an absurdly good striker. So for Andrade to be able to kind of figure out her game plan as the fight goes on, really show that high level of fight IQ and sort of figure it out as it was going on, I think this fight, she should be able to do kind of the same thing.
And I mean, I'm sure it's going to be a narrative. Let us know who you're going with in the comments as well. But I mean, in this one, I'm sure it's going to be a narrative, the height and reach differential. It's huge. I mean, 6 inches of reach for Chookagian and about 8 inches of height. That's insane. But again, you brought it up. If you look at Jessica Andrade's overall body of work that she had before dropping to strawweight, it was at a time before flyweight. So you had to drop 20 pounds, which is insane. But I mean, you look at that record, Marion Renault, Raquel Pennington. I mean, yeah, she
Larissa
beat
Pacheco.
Pennington. She lost to Pennington. Larissa Pacheco's the one that stands out to me because if you paid attention, I know PFL, they're not doing too good right now, but if you watched the last season of PFL, Kayla Harrison and Larissa Pacheco at featherweight. So Jessica Andrade, to fight fighters that are that big, and then move down at 115, have success, move back up to 125. Wow. I could definitely see her finding success now. Katlyn Chookagian, I wonder how good the takedown defense can be against somebody like Jessica Andrade, because we saw the offense against Antonina Shevchenko, but is she really the best at fighting on the ground? No, she's not. She's very much a Muay Thai practitioner and kickboxer at heart. Now, if we look at Katlyn Chookagian overall through her UFC tenure, 50% takedown defense, that's not really the greatest. It's not like she's going for many takedowns. She did in her last fight. That was a bit of a surprise. If we have a look at the overall votes over on Tapology, to 775, 74% going on Andrade, 56% saying she's going to win by decision, 37% saying she could win by knockout. If we have a look at the odds, they are close. Andrade open a -190 favorite. That line popped up really quick, but now -141 average has kind of leveled out. Chookagian open +165 underdog. Now she's at +116. So the money has come in on Katlyn Chookagian, which, is it a surprise? Maybe not so much. I will side, though, with the slight favorite in the former champion in Jessica Andrade. I think the power and the fact that she can really push a pace, that's something that you really like. Now, we always talk about this, Matt, with Fight Night picks. Technique versus just power in the wild blitzes. Usually technique wins out. I think in this fight, you have the added X factor of, well, if Andrade needs to wrestle and grapple, she can do that too. Usually with those technical brawlers, you don't see that as much. Andrade is really that complete mixed martial artist, really ahead of her time. It's just a shame that the lower weight classes didn't exist in the UFC. But I really do side with the Brazilian in this one here.
So, I'm going to side with Craig on this. I think Jessica Andrade, the power's in her favor. I think the cardio's in her favor. And that's not something we see a lot, where a power puncher has great cardio. Jessica Andrade has that. And it's not like she doesn't have a crazy volume to go with it. She throws an extremely high volume. Every shot has a lot of pop on it. And she can keep it going for all 5 rounds. You saw that in the first of the only Joanna fight, I should say. Andrade, and if it goes to the ground, let's say Katlyn Chookagian thinks, okay, I've got a pretty good double leg now. Jessica Andrade is really good at guillotines, and she's a phenomenal jiu-jitsu practitioner. So no matter where this fight goes, Katlyn Chookagian is the one in danger, because Andrade can knock her out on the feet, she can TKO her on the ground, she can submit her on the ground, whereas I really only see Katlyn Chookagian winning by a decision. So I'm going to pick Jessica Andrade, and hopefully, if she can get this win, there's not a lot of people I want to see fight Valentina right now. Jessica Andrade might be able to pose a few different things that, none of her past opponents have, because Andrade, one of the few power punchers that she would have to face, one of the few who could match her a little bit on the ground, perhaps. So if Andrade can get this, the sky's the limit.
Andrade Maia would be cool, but it's going to be Maia Shevchenko. I'm looking forward to this one. We both have Jessica Andrade in the fight. Great card, great co-main event. Cyril Gane taking on Andrade Delia in his UFC debut, and in our main event, the Korean Zombie taking on Brian Ortega. So you're going to want to keep it locked in with Fighting Picks, Matt, as we always say.
Let's get into it.